that one comment he made and used us not having sex as an excuse and a reason for him cheating and sleeping with someone else, that is a sentence that haunted me for years to come. Alrighty, friends, welcome back. This is Third Times Me. I'm your host, Kris Zervis. I am tuning in today and recording for this week's episode from Austin, Texas. I used to actually live in Austin, and I'm now back. It's been a year since I've been back, and I am super excited to be here. It feels great to get some warm, powerful sun on my skin. I'm actually here for a work retreat, and I've got my recording equipment set up in my hotel room, and really excited to just dig into some stuff today that I have been noodling on and really thinking through and processing for the last couple of weeks, preparing for this episode. Today, we're going to talk about walking away from controlling partners. I know this is a little bit deep, but I am very passionate. As you guys know, anyone that's listened to my show and all my episodes, you know how passionate I am about relationships and life. I'm super fascinated by how we interact with each other, how we heal from toxic relationships, whether it be romantic, friendships, family relationships, whatever it may be. And this is a topic that I have been noodling on and researching and really digging deep into myself for the last couple weeks to prepare for this week's episode. It's a topic that I am very sensitive to and have a lot of experience with, and I know that there is unfortunately a lot of people out there that can relate to this. So if you have been or are currently in a relationship with someone and you feel that there's some controlling characteristics and mannerisms there, if you feel like you're being manipulated, if you feel like your partner is trying to control you, restrict you, is codependent on you, then this is an episode that you're going to want to listen to because I've got some storytelling to do. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about my experiences with one relationship in particular from my past that incorporated all of these things. And we're going to talk about what went down, what I learned from that. And then over the years, I've spent lots of time in therapy and then also just educating myself, reading books, talking to other people that I've met over the years and how they've handled these situations. And we're going to run through some suggestions that I have on how to safely walk away if you're finding yourself right now in a controlling relationship, how to safely walk away and protect yourself because it's really hard to do. And we're going to talk about why it's so hard to do. So I want to set the stage first by doing a little bit of storytelling. And for those of you guys who have been listening and have tuned into some of my earlier episodes when I first kicked the show off, then you will be familiar with this relationship because I did have one episode dedicated to talking through that entire relationship from beginning to end, high level, what went down. But I really want to dive deep into this specific topic of how to walk away from a controlling relationship, how to protect yourself, and how to, provide yourself with the support that you need to be able to do so successfully because it's really difficult to do and it's really easy to get sucked back in. And that's exactly what happened to me time and time again over the course of 3.5 years. So my first boyfriend, and we're not including like casual boyfriends and love interests in high school and earlier on, when we're children, basically. My first adult relationship started with a man that I met the summer before I went off to college. So I had just graduated. I was 18 years old, was getting ready to go off to college. Summer before college starting, I met him and we dated for about 3.5 years. Within the first year of that relationship, being my freshman year of college, I attempted, and the important word there is attempted, and tried to end the relationship with this person 3 or 4 different times in just the first year of us being together. So this person lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was going to college in Tucson at University of Arizona. So that's about like a 2.5 hour drive. So somewhat of a long distance relationship. And I remember my first attempt to break up with this person was only a few months into my freshman year starting. So I was living in the dorms, had a dorm mate. I was living in actually an all-girls dorm, and I had rushed for sorority and got into a house and was really just, finding my footing and kind of getting comfortable with this new life of not living at home anymore, being off away at college, trying to make friends, trying to learn how to socialize with a whole new world of people, living in a new city, all of the things. Anyone who's gone off to college, they know what this experience is like. And it can be quite shocking because, there's obviously a lot of changes in your life, and then trying to kind of figure out like how to be on your own and how to balance schoolwork with socializing, making friends. And then if you needed to work part-time, there's kind of a lot of transitions and things that you needed to juggle. So my first attempt at ending things with this partner was a few months into my freshman year of college. The reason that I wanted to end things with this person was that I was seeing signs of control and I was feeling trapped. I was feeling incredibly controlled. It shifted very quickly, very early on in the relationship into that like parent-child type of dynamic where I felt like I had transitioned from being at home with parents, having to, report to parents and, ask permission from parents, and then moving off to college and living 2.5 hours away from my boyfriend, and felt like I was having to answer to him all the time. I couldn't go out to college parties, to house parties, girls' night outs, sorority, fraternity parties, whatever it was. Since I was involved in Greek life my first semester of college, there was a lot of social outings, gatherings, parties, all of those things. And I couldn't do any of that without feeling that I was disappointing my boyfriend. He was constantly checking up on me. I mentioned this in my episode that I dedicate to talking about I mentioned this in the episode that I talk about boyfriend number 1, emotional abuse 101, because this is the same partner that I'm referencing, guys. So go back and listen to that episode if you want kind of like a high overview of that relationship. But I couldn't do any of those things just being a regular college kid without him blowing up my phone, checking in on me, questioning me, making me feel guilty and making me feel guilty and bad about going out and wanting to like socialize and make new friends, constantly questioning me, just lots of controlling, very manipulative, inappropriate behavior. So I would say, I think it was like probably 4 months into my freshman year, 3-4 months into my freshman year, I had, at this point confided in I had confided in a couple good girlfriends of mine, and got to a place where I knew that I needed to end this relationship, because for me to have the college experience that I needed and wanted and deserved, and, in order for me to grow into the person that I was wanting to kind of figure myself out, this is my first time living outside my parents' home. It was not a healthy relationship for me, and I could feel myself my freedom was being kept from me. Like I wasn't able to really just kind of fly free and like figure myself out and not have to answer to anyone. So I got up the courage to have a breakup conversation with this person on the phone. Mind you, remember, he lived 2.5 hours away. So I wanted to do this on the phone, and I think we had plans to maybe see each other like a weekend in the coming up, but I knew that it was going to be very difficult for me to break up with him in person. So I opted and prioritized doing it on the phone for that reason. So first breakup attempt, I remember I went out into my community living room area of my dorm to get some privacy because my dorm roommate was home at the time. And I stepped out into the community living area and got on the phone with him and tried my best to express to him how I was feeling. I didn't want to point fingers because I knew that wouldn't go over well, but told him that I was just really feeling like I, for myself and for my own personal growth, needed to have some single time. I needed to just be able to focus on building friendships, schoolwork, figuring out what I wanted my major to be, building a social life here for me in Tucson, Arizona, and just really needed to focus on that and having a long-term serious relationship that was, 2.5 hours away was just not going to be serving me at this time. And his response was to go into immediate panic anxiety attack. So when I had this conversation with him on the phone, and I remember it like it was yesterday, it's very clear and vivid in my mind. I remember him getting into his car, and he had a manual 6-speed car at the time. He got into his car, and he must have had me on speakerphone or something, because I could hear him revving his engine and shifting gears. And he broke down, was bawling, crying, hyperventilating is what it sounded like on the other end to me, and was just telling me I could not do this to him. We were meant to be together. He loved me so much. This wasn't fair. What had he done wrong? What had I done wrong? Was there someone else? Just went off and was a complete emotional disaster. And I could hear him get into his car while he's on the phone with me. And I'm trying to kind of calm him down and just be listen, so-and-so, this is, nothing to do with you. This is everything to do with me. And I just need this time right now for myself. This is my first experience as a young woman being on my own, and I really am feeling like I don't have the freedom to do what I want to do. And I could hear him in his car, and he was threatening to come down all the way to Tucson, drive all the way down to Tucson in his car right then and there, drop everything to convince me out of my decision. And I could hear him in his car, and he was shifting. And I remember this being after daylight hours. So this must have been 8 or 9 o'clock at night or something. And I remember him driving in his car, and I could hear him shifting really aggressively and speeding like a madman. And he's like, you know what? I'm coming down to see you right now. This, this cannot be happening. And I just remember feeling completely responsible for his well-being at that time, because his energy and his mental state and how upset he was, and then him clearly speeding his car like a mad person down the freeway, threatening to come down to Tucson and convince me that I had made the wrong decision, just felt like something I didn't know how to handle. I didn't know how to respond to it. I didn't know how to calm him down, but then still also stick to my guns. So after probably about 30 minutes of a very emotional, draining, hectic conversation, I agreed to have a conversation with him and to not break up, and to talk through things and figure out what we could do for me to feel like I was getting my independence and everything that I needed, but still stay together. So that was breakup attempt number 1. And I look back on that younger version of me, 18-year-old Kris, and I just wish so badly that I could be sitting next to 18-year-old Kris on that couch in that community living room of my freshman dorm, and I could just have my arm around me and just calmly tell my younger version of myself, you need to end it, and it doesn't matter. You need to just end this and do what's best for you. Because that first attempt of breaking up and then being pulled back into his manipulation, his control, and his games, and him making me feel like he needed me and he was so dependent on me and that I was not allowed to leave him. I was so inexperienced at this point in my life. I didn't know how to manage this type of emotional behavior. I wasn't properly equipped to handle this type of conversation, and I was completely lost. And I just wish I could go back and tell myself, stick to your guns. This is not your responsibility. He is not your responsibility. He is a grown-ass man, and you are 18 years old, and you have the right to not be with or be with whomever you want. And I did not want to be with him at the time. But it was hard. It was hard. And so if anyone who's been in the situation understands how difficult it is when it's someone that you care about, even if you know you don't want to be with them, you feel so bad, and it's like this sense of guilt, and you feel, when someone makes you feel responsible for their well-being and their livelihood, not okay. That is a very strong form of manipulation. So that is a big red flag. And I just want to remind and tell everyone here that, if you're in this situation and you're dealing with this now, you need to find someone safe to talk to about this, whether it's a therapist, a friend, maybe a parent, grandparent, whatever it may be, you need to find someone that you trust that has life experience that can help guide you through this, because I know these conversations are extremely difficult and they're emotionally exhausting. So that was breakup attempt number 1. Fast forward to probably a month or 2 later, so not too much longer after that, I attempted to break up with him again, and we agreed on a break of sorts. So not like a break up, but like a short-term break where we're just like kind of taking some space away from each other to not be together and to kind of think through things and clear our heads. Looking back now, I agreed to that because it felt like it was the only way to kind of slowly break away from him. But looking back, I now know that is someone's tactic to keep you still a little bit on a leash, right? So they're not allowing you to fully break free away from them. They're still keeping you at arm's reach. And, most times, like psychologically, if we keep some kind of attachment to someone, especially like an emotional loving relationship, someone that we've been, intimately involved with, if you keep any type of line of communication or any type of attachment there, it's so much harder to break free. So we had a week or week and a half long break. And I remember that I went out to a college party with a bunch of my girlfriends, and I just felt like I had this weight off my shoulders because for the first time I could be at a college party and be flirting and talking to other people, like men, women, flirting with guys that I thought were cute, and like not feeling guilty about it. And I just had this overwhelming feeling of like wanting to just be free and spread my wings and fly. And I had a great time that night. I had kind of been eyeing this guy that I had a crush on for quite some time, and had been kind of waiting for the opportunity to be able to make my move. And there was kind of all this electric energy between the two of us whenever we'd see each other at parties. And this was my opportunity to finally allow myself to just be vulnerable and make a move and have a good time and enjoy myself and flirt my heart away. And that's exactly what I did. And I remember feeling like there's no way I could go back to this boyfriend of mine, this partner of mine. I had the best night of my life. I finally felt free, finally had no one to answer to, could do whatever the hell I wanted. Somehow I ended up agreeing to get back with this person a couple weeks later. I remember him actually driving down to Tucson and not notifying me that he was going to be arriving, but he just showed up unannounced and took me out to dinner and kind of like wined and dined me and gave me this whole, I love you, we're meant to be, you're perfect for me, we're great together, like why would you give this up, like why don't you want to fight for us, like la-di-da-di-da-di-da. So all the excuses in the book, and I just felt trapped again, and I got sucked back into a relationship with him. So this kind of behavior, this up and down, happened time and time again. It was just a complete up and down roller coaster of an emotional relationship for 3 years. So freshman, sophomore, and most of my junior year of college, I was in this unhealthy, controlling, toxic relationship and tried multiple times to break away from him because I didn't feel like I could have my own life and be my own person with him. A year into our relationship, he got me a promise ring. And this ring looked absolutely like an engagement ring. And I remember having a little bit of a panic attack when I opened this box that he gave me that he had in his glove compartment of his car. And he said it was a Christmas gift. And when I saw the size of the box and knew that usually you only put either earrings or a ring into that size of a jewelry box, I panicked because I thought that he was proposing. Thankfully, he was not, but the ring looked exactly like an engagement ring. And I remember just feeling really uncomfortable in my tummy and my gut and my heart, just my whole body, every time I'd be down in Tucson in college. And I knew that if I knew that he was coming to visit me, I would make sure to put the ring on. But when he wasn't there and I had class and was going out and going to the gym and doing things with my friends, I would try to keep the ring off as much as I could, because it felt like I knew if people saw it that they would maybe assume or think that I was engaged. And it felt so not in line with what I wanted for myself and didn't feel like a decision that I wanted. I felt like I had been convinced into this commitment to be with this person that I didn't want to be with, but I just didn't have the tools to break away from him. This person would frequently criticize me going out. He was very much against social drinking. So anytime he would come down to Tucson, or I would go up to Phoenix or Scottsdale and visit him, and we would go out, just being college kids, going out to the bars, going dancing, having a good time. There was so many little innuendos and guilt trips and comments about how he was just not a fan of social drinking, and how it, put people's judgment not in a good place, and how it was hard to trust people that socially drink when they were in relationships. There was just all these little comments here and there, and he made me feel bad about wanting to, socially drink and go out, and especially if I was going out and drinking and going to the bars and parties with my friends in college and he wasn't there. He felt clearly threatened by it because he wasn't there to quote unquote protect me. But looking back now, I know that was him just being fearful that he couldn't control me, because if he wasn't around me all the time, he couldn't control my behavior. He couldn't keep tabs on who I was hanging out with, people that I was talking to. It all goes back to controlling, codependent, manipulative, people. And that's exactly what he was. My junior year of college, I had the most academically strenuous year of my college career. I took on an absurd amount of credits. I had one semester my junior year, I had 18 credits. I was doing 2 different internship programs. I was working part-time. I was just in the library studying all the time. I didn't have much of a social life. I didn't have time to have much of a social life. And so my junior year was the first year that I really had to put a stop and a halt onto the visits with my boyfriend. And although it was a really stressful year, it was honestly the best thing that could have happened for me to slowly get to a place where I could weed myself and distance myself enough from him to then exit the relationship. Because I had so much going on academically in college and had so many commitments, I gave him a heads up before that semester started, hey, listen, dude, this is going to be one of the toughest semesters in my entire college career. I'm on an academic scholarship. I cannot risk losing my scholarship. I have a lot of things to do. At the time, I was actually trying to graduate a little bit early. So there was a lot of things going on in my world. And so I told him, this is going to be one of those semesters that's not going to be like the previous semesters. I can't be coming up to Phoenix, every other weekend to visit you. And up until that point, every month, I would say 1, if not 2 weekends a month, I was getting on a bus in Tucson and taking a Greyhound bus from Tucson to Phoenix, Arizona, and spending the weekends with him, or he would come down. But it was more often than not me going up there to visit him, because there was this expectation that we would see each other at least one weekend a month. And so I just hadn't really allowed myself to be as present as I wanted to be, and was really feeling like I was missing out on just all the social things and football games. And I felt like my heart wanted to be so badly in Tucson with all of my new friends and everyone that was having a good time and making all these amazing memories that they were going to have for the rest of their lives. And my heart wanted to be there, but I just felt so obligated and so trapped to physically be in Phoenix with him and spending more time with him. And I just felt under his rule. So junior year, having this crazy semester academically, I set the expectations ahead of time that I was not going to be able to come up to visit him very often. And that allowed me to stay in Tucson, keep my butt there, and just focus, study hard, hang out with my friends in the little bit of free time that I did have, and just stay in Tucson. And it felt, even though it was crazy and chaotic and so fucking hard, it was the probably hardest 4 months of my entire life. But it really allowed me to distance myself from him, because he wasn't able to come see me and I wasn't able to come see him. That semester led to him cheating on me, believe it or not. So funny enough how you can be giving someone everything and all of you and sacrificing so much of yourself, and that still isn't enough for that person. And I know this has nothing to do with my worth and nothing to do with my value that I brought to the relationship. But when someone is very codependent on you and needs to control you, and if you remove yourself from that or distance yourself from them, they get stir crazy and they need something else to lean on, something else to use and manipulate and control. So I wasn't spending much time at all with him. And this is my junior year, is the year that I found out in the middle of studying for my midterms that my boyfriend at the time had been sleeping with someone else. So the last about 6 or 7 weeks of our relationship, he had been kind of stirring up this relationship with a woman that was a really good friend of one of his good girlfriends, who had introduced them and had also encouraged the flirtation, so I hear, between the two of them. So he got involved with someone that was a good friend of one of his good girlfriends, and they slept together. And the girl that he slept with had a boyfriend who reached out to me on Facebook, and this is actually how I found all this out. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting in the library studying for midterms, and I got a message on Facebook Messenger from this random guy that I'd never heard of before, didn't know the name, wasn't familiar with him. And this guy reaches out to me and he's like, "Hey, Kris, my name's so-and-so. Are you the girlfriend of this person?" And I responded and said, "Yes, do I know you? But yes, I am. Like, who are you? Like, what's up and why are you reaching out?" He proceeded to tell me that he had uncovered that his girlfriend had been sleeping around with my boyfriend at the time for the last several weeks. And he had heard through the grapevine that, you know, this guy had a girlfriend, and he got my name and like did some research and digging and found me on Facebook. And I remember him telling me that he just clicked through my photos and just said that he, you know, could tell from my photos that I just had such a genuine smile and I seemed like a really nice person, and that he just thought that I deserved to know that my boyfriend had been cheating on me. So that stung. You know, and it was one of those things where I, you know, like I mentioned, I had been trying to break up with this person throughout our entire relationship, and you know, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. This is the person that I lost my virginity to. This at the time was the only person I'd ever been intimately involved with sexually. So there was definitely some ties there that I wanted to break and walk away from, but it had proven to be very difficult to do so. And it wasn't a healthy relationship for me. And so, you know, it was a shitty way for things to end, but you know, I've looked back many times on that relationship, and it sucks that that's how it ended. I did actually have a conversation with him. I called him right away after I found this all out and asked him if all this that I had just, you know, all of this information that had just been shared with me, if this was true. And he actually, surprisingly, I thought he would have tried to keep it close to his chest, but he did admit to everything. And one thing I remember him telling me on the phone call that we had when I called him out on all of this and told him that we were for sure done forever, because one thing that I will never stand for is cheating. Absolutely not. And I asked him, you know, why did you do it? You know, I've been busting my ass here in Tucson, having the hardest semester of my entire college career, and just busting my butt, and like have barely even had time to go out and socialize and have fun. It's just been all work and no play. Like, why do this, and why do this now? Just, you know, made me feel like shit. And I remember him telling me the last couple times that we had seen each other that we hadn't had sex, and what did he expect was going to happen? That stung. That really stung. And I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I will share, because I will definitely have a future episode dedicated to this, but I will share that one comment he made and used us not having sex as an excuse and a reason for him cheating and sleeping with someone else. That is a sentence that haunted me for years to come. And I still actually catch myself sometimes being affected by it and having to really remind myself that your desire and willingness to have sex with your partner is not ever to be used against you. It is not ever to be used as something to control you, to make you feel bad, to make you feel guilty into having sex with them. If you don't want to have sex, that's okay. There's this whole, so much pressure, especially as women, I feel, to be very, sexually submissive to our male partners. And so that's something that I struggled with for a really, really, really long time. But going back to the silver lining, it was a shitty way to have a relationship end, and it really broke my heart. And even though I knew I didn't want to be with this person anymore, it still fucking sucked. It really hurt. And I definitely had also trust issues for years to come. The next person that I ended up dating after this person, unfortunately, had to really kind of bear all of the traumas and the burdens and like the trust issues that I had. He really bared that in my next relationship. And it was super unfortunate because the next person that I got involved with was a wonderful human and never did anything to, warrant me not trusting him. But I was still very much healing from all the shit that went down with this boyfriend number one. Learnings from this. I want you guys to walk away from this episode feeling like if this is something that you can relate to or you've experienced, I want you to have something to think about and to feel supported on. So my biggest learning from that experience, in order to walk away from a controlling, manipulative, emotionally abusive partner, you need to stick to your guns and allow yourself physical space and separation. It's absolutely necessary where you are being manipulated, guilt tripped, or controlled. I put so much emphasis on trying to break up in a quote unquote respectful and kind way with this person. And in doing so, it kept me a little bit too close to him and allowed him to keep reeling me back in over and over and over again. So when you break up once, stick to your guns. That's my message number one. Stick to your guns. Give yourself time and space. Some people break up and then get back together later on and they're healthier for it and they have a wonderful relationship, and that's totally fine. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you have a relationship that you feel is not healthy for you and in your gut and your core is toxic, you have to draw the line, stick to your guns, and give yourself that physical space. If you need to ghost this person, you need to ghost this person. You need to cut off all contact. You need to create a physical separation of space from the person, block their number, block them so they can't call you, they can't text you. Do whatever you have to do to create a safe little bubble, and you need to protect yourself. I also highly recommend bringing people into your world that can support you through this and understand what you're going through. Seek out a therapist. Talk to a parent if you have a parent that you trust, that will have your back. Pick a friend. If you have a friend that is very loyal and has your back and can support you, tell them what your intentions are. Tell them, what you've decided, that you don't want to get back with this person, and have them help you, keep you accountable to this, and create a protection, a wall. Put a wall up, whatever you have to do, because people that are codependent and are controlling and emotionally abusive, they will do whatever they possibly can to keep you coming back and under their control. Some folks will unfortunately even go as far as pretending to be suicidal. And that's something that I went through with this person. One of the times that I tried to break up with him, he told me that if anything were to happen to him, for me to just remember that it was not my fault. Yeah. Don't let people pull these games on you. It is not your responsibility to take care of anyone's emotional and mental health and well-being. It just absolutely is not. Do not let people guilt trip you into doing that. It's all a game. So what you need to do is you need to create separation, physical space, give yourself time. And on the note of suicide threats, some things to do when someone is threatening suicide and using that as a manipulation. Express concern for the person, but make sure that you maintain your boundaries. There is a way, and it's a delicate dance to do, but there is a way to express that you care about them and you have concern, but you need to respect your own boundaries. Also, put the responsibility for living or dying back in the hands of that person. This is not your responsibility. Their livelihood, their well-being, their physical, mental health is not anyone's responsibility but their own. Communicate to them. Our relationship should be based on love and respect and not threats. Tell them that you care for them, but this is not what you want the foundation of your relationship to be. and stick to it. Don't argue with the other person about whether he is serious about his threats. That's going to get you nowhere, and you're just going to talk yourself in circles. And lastly, but probably most importantly, remember that contrary to what other people are saying, what the other person is saying, you don't have to prove anything to them. I remember when my ex played the suicidal card on me and pretended to be suicidal. And I only say pretended because he did later on admit to me that it was a manipulation game and a tactic that he was using because he felt insecure and he knew that he was about to lose me. So I'm only saying pretended because he did confirm that he was indeed not suicidal. So, if someone is telling you these things, if you loved me, you'd stay with me. Like, I can't live without you. I'd rather die or kill myself than be with you. If someone says something like that to you when you're trying to end a relationship with them, remember, you are not responsible for their well-being and you don't have to prove anything to them. You don't need to be the one to save them. That is not your job. That is only on them, and they need to seek professional help. So to wrap things up, my messages and takeaways for folks that are listening that can relate to this. Physical space and separation is necessary. When you are being manipulated, being guilt-tripped, controlled, and to staying with someone, I encourage and empower you to do whatever you need to do to allow yourself to keep that separation in space. If you need to block them on social media, do it. If you need to block them on your cell phone so they can't call and text you and blow your phone up, do it. Whatever you have to do. If you have to cut people out of your life, if you have mutual friends that are not supportive, that are, using this, or that this person is using to get to you and send messages to you and try to convince you and persuade you to stay with them or get back with them or, just meet for coffee, whatever it may be. You have to cut people out of your life. If you have to temporarily block folks, whatever you have to do to create a safe bubble for yourself, you have to do that. And I also highly, 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 highly encourage you to seek out a therapist, find people in your life, family or friends that can support you, tell them what's going on, and really utilize that support system for yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. This is Third Times Me. I'm Kris Zervis. As always, you guys can find me on social media. My Instagram handle is at Kris Zervis, KrisZervas. Please go in on Instagram, give me an ad, follow me. I'm also on TikTok at Kris Zervis. And if you guys like this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you share it with folks that you think it might be helpful with. And also, please feel free to tag and share them on your social media and tag me. Let me know what you're liking. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next week.